I know that we are all on a mission to break the cycle of poverty and move to plenty. And no, I am not asking you to ditch abundance and embrace lack. I am, however, suggesting that there may be some positivity to seasons of lack in our lives. I'm Katlego Moagi, and although we all deep down believe that God Almighty is our source, He is our provider, sometimes we focus so much on our side gigs, on our businesses, on our jobs, and the income that they provide to us that we tend to think that they are our source, that they are our providers. And we unfortunately begin to believe that seasons of unemployment, seasons of low sales, seasons of dryness in our pockets and in our bank accounts are things that we should be ashamed of, things that we should run away from. While in reality, when we are in those moments, when we are in those seasons, we have no choice but to pause and say a prayer to say, God Almighty, may you please provide money for our rent or our mortgage. May you please provide money for fuel or taxi fare. May you please provide money for food or diapers, right? And we are in a culture that is so fixated on Jesus died for me to be rich, or Jesus was poor for me to be wealthy. We are so fixated in poverty is a curse, lack is a curse, sickness and disease are curses, that when we find ourselves in those situations, when other people find themselves in those situations, we drown in shame and in embarrassment, because that somehow is a sign of a lack of faith. That somehow is a sign of a lack of prayer. That somehow is a sign that we are walking in a curse and not in a blessing. But in reality, those moments present us with an opportunity to just pause and pray and remember that Jesus Christ is indeed the source, not the business, not the side hustle, not the salary that we were getting from work. These things present us with opportunities to rekindle our faith in God and in miracles, in miraculous provision, in miraculous healing that God Almighty can, He does, and He will provide. But when we think that we don't need it, when we think that we don't need to say a prayer for us to have something, then why would we say it, right? And again, I'm not saying that we should want to be poor or we should want to be in seasons of lack and poverty, but I am saying that we need to understand that those seasons are, in my opinion, important. Those seasons are helpful. They help us to pause and remember who the source is, to pause and have a conversation with the source, to pause and to have faith in that source, instead of just saying that we believe in God, instead of just proclaiming our faith in Him, our faith in Him being the provider, when we have not really seen Him provide. And I'm not saying that when we get money from work, He's not providing. He is providing, but what we are seeing in front of us, that money coming into our bank accounts from work, money coming into our bank accounts from our clients, from our side gigs and that, it somehow causes us to focus on it, on that money, on that employer, on that side gig, on that business, on that client, and forget to look to God, And as children of God, as seekers and followers of Jesus Christ, a relationship with God, a constant communion with God, that is what we ought to be seeking after. Glorifying God, allowing Him to take His rightful place, Him being our constant focus. That's what we ought to be doing. And seasons of lack, of poverty, of not having an abundance provide us with the opportunity to do just that. Let me know in the comment section if you agree with what I'm saying or if it's just completely opposite to what you think and what you believe, and just kind of elaborate in the comment section why you think and believe what you do. And I have nothing against medical aids. I now have medical aid. I didn't always have it, but I now have it. And nothing against it. But have you noticed that where you would have previously said, God, please heal me of this, God, heal my child or my baby of this, you're now quick to say, let me book an appointment with the pediatrician, let me book an appointment with the doctor or the specialist. Have you noticed that? Because personally, I've noticed that since I have medical aid now. Again, I have nothing against, earning more money and getting money from work, wherever you get your money from. But have you noticed that since you passed a certain income gap or bracket, where you used to say, God, please help me to manage this money well, please give me the wisdom of how best to steward this money, this income, you now just spend haphazardly, you now just spend carelessly, you now spend on anything and everything in a way that shows that you don't really care about how you're using the money. Let me know in the comments below, please. And I'm also not saying that we should yearn for seasons of no money, no medical aid, no means. I am rather saying that we should stop feeling ashamed or embarrassed when we find ourselves in those seasons, right? Like there's summer, there's spring, there's winter, there's autumn, and all of them are important. All of them are good, right? Yes, some people prefer one season over the other, but that does not make one season more important than the other. All 4 seasons work hand in hand together to create a proper life on earth. And even in our lives, in our spiritual lives, in our relationship with God, and life as a whole, we need our seasons of summer, spring, autumn, and winter. We need those seasons in our health, in our finances, in our marriages, in all areas of our lives, right? And most importantly, most importantly, what I am saying is that let us stop linking these seasons to a degree of faith or a strength of prayer, making people think, or making ourselves think, that when we find ourselves in sicknesses, when we find ourselves in poverty, when we find ourselves in unpleasant seasons, then that is a reflection of what little faith we have or what weak prayer lives we have. Right? Let's think of the Bible. Let's look at stories in the Bible, because that is our source of information. That is our source of knowledge and wisdom and how to do life, right? Now, when we look at the Bible, you tell me, was Prophet Elijah lacking in faith and in prayer for ravens to feed him, for a widow to feed him, for him not to have money or means to feed himself? You can read about that in 1 Kings 17. Also, the woman with the issue of blood, the woman who was bleeding for 12 years, was she lacking in faith? Was she lacking in prayer? Is that why she was in the sickness that she was in? You can read about that in Mark chapter 5. I think it's so sad and so discouraging to so many people when we shout around and say, when someone goes through a situation, when someone is sick, when someone is poor, when someone is unemployed, when someone is whatever, it's because they don't have faith, it's because they don't pray. That is a very wrong blanket statement to cast out, right? And what about a person who is genuinely praying? They are praying, they are reading the Bible, they have faith, they believe that God Almighty is going to come through. And maybe they are going through a situation like Job, no matter how much Job prayed, no matter how much he would have fasted, no matter how much faith he had in God Almighty had set the stage to glorify himself, to take the glory, to show the devil that his child Job can handle stuff and still believe in him. him. So no matter what amount of prayer, fasting, reading Bible Job could have employed, he would have still been in that situation. His children would have still died. His livestock, his wealth would have still been taken away. His body would have still experienced the boils and the sicknesses that he experienced. So it is very careless of us to link people's abundance or lack, to link people's sickness or health, to link people's summers or winter to their faith or lack of faith, to their prayer lives or absence of prayer life, because we don't know what God Almighty is doing. We don't know what season someone is in. We don't know why they are in that season. So it best thing for us to do is to just shut our mouths and to just focus on God for ourselves and pray to God Almighty on behalf of those people. It is very, very careless to think what I just said. It's very careless. If we remember Lazarus and the rich person, Lazarus was poor here on earth and the rich man was rich on earth. And then when they got to the other side, after both of them passed away, Lazarus went to heaven and the rich person was in hell. But according to the standards of the world, especially today, many would say that someone who is rich, that is a reflection of their relationship with God. They pray hard, they fast hard, they read the Bible harder, they have harder faith and all of that. But the Bible gave us that clear example that showed that no, poverty and wealth, that is not a reflection of our faith. All this to say that poverty, lack, sickness, disease, seasons of dryness, seasons of hard times, they are not things that we should be running away from. And again, I'm not saying that we should praise poverty or we should ask God to make us poor, but I'm saying that we should take the good with the bad. The same joy that we express in summer, we should express in winter as well, with the understanding that God is God of summer, He's God of winter, He's God of lack, and He's God of abundance. He is the same in all situations, as His word tells us that do not be lovers of money. As I have said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That is in Hebrews 13 verse 5, I believe. He's there with us. He's there with us. It's not like when you see someone driving a Porsche, God is more with that person than He is with you because you're in a shack, because you are walking to work, because you're drinking water instead of having a meal. And don't let anybody, make you feel less than because you are going through a certain season, because you're going through a certain time. No, you stick to God. Let God Almighty have His perfect work in you. And also don't be in a hurry to say, God, I'm just reading the Bible so I can come out. No, let it have its perfect work. Let the season have its perfect work in your life. Right? Winter is there for the number of months that it's meant to be there. Summer, spring, autumn, every season, let it have its perfect work and will in our lives, without us rushing to come out, without us rushing to be like the next person, without us trying to, I'm saying this while we as a family are going through a season of I think it would be winter, of dryness, where our water troughs where we used to drink water, that has kind of gone dry, and we're now having to look to God. We're now having to focus on Jesus to say, please provide. The money that used to come from this source, it's not coming from there anymore, but the bills and the expenses that were fed, that were patched, that were paid through this income stream, they're still there. So God Almighty, please, may you come through and may you please do that for us. And we're now on the 9th month. month and it's going well. Obviously it's not like it was when that income source was there, but God Almighty comes through every single month. God Almighty is doing it every single month, and we're just having a wonderful opportunity to remember that actually it's been God, it's always been God, it is God, and it will always be God, right? And we don't know how much longer this is going to last, we don't know how far it's going to be, but we are just in a state of saying, God, thank you for the opportunity to see you, to see your hand come through. Because sometimes we think the hand of God is when we get a big deal. We think the hand of God is when you apply for a certain job and then you get it. It's when you get a promotion. It's when someone just throws money into your account, or when someone gives you a car, or when something materially comes through. But the hand of God is also seen where you're like, I don't know where we're going to get money for this and that we really need to pay otherwise, but then somehow it works out. Somehow God makes a way, as he's always been making a way. As he tells us, he makes a way in a desert. He's that God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And these seasons, these moments of lack, these moments of not having something that you can hold and say, I have my money from work, I have my money from business, I have my money from this source or that source, that is a brilliant reminder that he is the source, he is the provider, he is the healer, he is the everything. And I hope that you reflect in your life and you see where he has been that for you, and you allow him to be that for you. Before you go, please leave your views in the comment section below. Please watch the video on your screen now, and let's meet again next time. Till then, bye for now.